Okay, information architecture. Information architecture is the study of organizing and structuring content on a website so users are able to find what they're looking for easily. It's also used to help make a site more understandable so users can easily adjust to how the site functions. Sorry, that sneeze is like really sneaking up on me. Information architecture isn't just about the navigation of a website. While that is part of it, it's about the arranging of content in a logical way depending on the type of web product. So people are often daunted when coming across web products that are difficult to figure out. The risk is that a user will abandon your product or service because they're trying to find what they want makes too much effort. So all they want to do is go online and buy a new Halloween mug, and they cannot figure out how to get to the shop because there's all this stuff about, and this happens very often. You'll have clients that generally have big egos, and there's nothing wrong with having an ego, but when they want their ego up front and center versus selling their products, then that's probably not the best way to do it. They want to show themselves, their story, their this and that. But for the most part, if the intention of your website is to sell something, you got to get right down to it. The three elements of information architecture: where am I and how I can get the relevant information that I want relative to my position. So you've got your users, your content, and your context. So our users, they consider the persona that will be using this product and the terms they use, how they think, and what motivates them. Having a solid understanding of your target users will aid in grouping content in a way that resonates with them. User research methods like UX, interviews, surveys, etc., as we've done, will help gain insight into understanding and gaining empathy for the user. Sorry, my nose here. Consider what content exists and determine what content you absolutely need. So this is where a sitemap can be useful in determining the hierarchy of content and then how that relates. Big step here. The idea is to match the user to the content and finding content in place. Gosh, let me reread this. The idea is to match the user to the content and place that we're finding, this is all messed up, is intuitive for that particular user. So thinking about age group, how tech savvy they are, etc. So content can come from many sources. Through iteration, you will determine what content is necessary and what content is expendable. Context involves relating the user to the web product using content. So the user's current position in the web product, is there a logical way for the type of user to navigate to the related content, etc. Relevance is important when considering the context of content within a category. So what does an information architect do? So an information architect connects the user to the content they're looking for by using theory like Gestalt, patterns of hierarchy, cognitive load, and various other organizational systems. So organizational systems, while information architecture can involve many sciences like cognitive studies, data analysis, a designer can be involved in structuring and grouping categories of information in a way that's visually organized and logical. So the three main organizational systems we can utilize as designers are sequential, hierarchical, and matrix. So hierarchical organization has to do with assigning visual priority to elements depending on their level of importance, just like we do in design or print design. This organizational structure borrows theory from Gestalt with the main goal of establishing what to look at first, second, etc. So your headline, your subheads, shop now, about, etc. Sequential organization presents content to users in order so they can accomplish a task easily. So shopping carts are an example of sequential organization where a user needs top follow. This has got all kinds of errors. A sequence of tasks to complete a purchase. So a matrix organization, or sorry, let me tap upon that now. In regards to shopping carts, so you have to follow a particular sequence of tasks. So you need to put your email in, you have to put your address in order to calculate your your shipping costs, etc. So Matrix, this method presents information to a user in a way that they can choose their path depending on what they choose. So they're giving options in a topical, chronological, alphabetical order, and then they're presented with the content based on their selection. So same thing with, say, shopping online. I really want to be able to filter by price. I want to filter by popularity. And then we have labeling. So labeling refers to the actual terminology that represents a common set of content. So common labels, services, contact. What words you choose to label content affects the recognition and priority of that content. Using common terminology that users are familiar with is ideal, and avoid industry jargon that terms that are not familiar to users. So it's fun to give some silly names to things, but again, we always need accessibility at the front or at the front of our minds, because we want to make sure that that is obviously accessible to absolutely everyone. Our navigation system. So the ideal scenario is to build functional, usable navigation for a web product that matches the user's intent and intuition. So with potentially many categories and subcategories, defining a navigation system can be quite involved. So for contemplating a navigation system, you may need to ask what type of navigation system will be best suited for the user of the web product. So drop down, mega menu, left, sticky nav, etc. Whoopsies. How do I describe navigation options in an ideal way? Obviously for your target. What position on the web product, so desktop or mobile, will work best? How many navigation choices should I display to the user based on relevant content? You know, going too far into many separate pages and elements is maybe a bit too daunting, and not enough is maybe too broad. So finding that nice happy medium for your audience. How do I arrange the navigation options by priority? So card sorting, where's the minced garlic? There's nothing worse than standing in a large grocery store trying to find an obscure item you need for a recipe. Garlic, not very obscure. Whoever wrote this, just kidding. Good examples of bad information architecture isn't limited to web products, so it's all the same. What's a fast, inexpensive, and useful way to organize that content for a web product in a way that's meaningful to a user? So get the user to do it. Put people in a grocery store, see where they veer to find something like garlic. And if they're all going to the same spot, then obviously that would be a good spot to put it. So we have open card sorting. In this method, the participants are asked to sort the cards into groups that make sense to them. They then name these groups. Pardon me. They feel best that describes each category. You know, produce, vegetables, or sorry, fruits. So you have like a produce section, then you have a fruit section, you have a vegetable section. Maybe you have exotic fruit section, etc. This method provides good user feedback on the names they choose for each category. Whoopsies. Closed card sorting. The closed card sorting, the participants are asked to group cards under predefined categories. So that's where you provide the actual names of things, and then they decide where things should go. Open card is a little more broad, particularly maybe a little more difficult to pull that information out of your client or out of your participants. Sorry, circling back to closed card sorting, this helps gain insight into what categories the user chooses as appropriate for that content. Conducting a card sorting workshop. Create a list of the content. So create a list of topics of content that you're going to ask the user to work with. If you're creating a closed card sort session, create a list of categories the user will be working with. If this will be a new web product, create topics that you are envisioning to be on the product. If this is an existing site, list the most important categories of the content. Then we determine between physical and online card sorting. So physical card sorting is actually using, you can actually purchase, it's like a deck of cards, and those are for like a web deck of cards. Or you can use sticky notes and represent things that way. So using sticky notes, index cards, etc. write the topics of content on each card, and then make sure your writing is obviously very legible when you do pass this on. Or online card sorting. This is kind of like we did in that TOAST thing. So you can use in Envision, that TOAST assignment we did last semester in Envision. So that's where you can use those sticky notes and do it that way. Consult the docs for how to use the online tool, and then use a screen sharing app, obviously, to get everyone to work together in that. And then we conduct the session, so collect the participants' demographic information. The stuff I think isn't new to you folks. You all know how what we need. First, demographics. Make sure there's ample room. Obviously, if you have people physically in the room, explain the objective of the session while you're asking. Show the user the cards and explain each topic. Allow them to work freely. Add and remove cards if they wish, if they feel that that's very important to them. Try to answer in a way that won't skew the user's choice. Encourage the participant to speak freely. Record and write things down. Ask them, obviously, to name or rename each category if they would like. And then we ask the participant questions as to why they're placing cards into certain categories. Get them to explain their choices. And we analyze the data. So map out your findings in a chart form by participant. Look and identify common results. Note any new ideas. Maybe there's no bad ideas, but maybe they're very, very effective ideas that you think, okay, that's a good one. We most definitely should integrate that. Note any pertinent comments that came up in the session. Identify any changes changes to the content that participants may have had. I'm having trouble speaking today. And we create a final idea card sort based on that analysis. So we take things out, we add things in, we decide what works best and what does not. And that's where we land on our final. Any questions on that? It is quite fun.